getting on a double-decker bus. We're going upstairs. So we're having a little lunch picnic here in Regent's Park, and you can see this compostable bag that we got at the store. Why can't we do this in the US more? Also, check out these forks that we got. They're made of wood. Oh yeah, and our drinks come with compostable straws. So Jesse, I'm glad that we're finally back together on this trip.
I know.
It's been a couple weeks apart, and that's one of the longest times I think we've been apart in the past 2.5 years.
Just due to logistics of the show, yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for holding down the fort while I was gone. I know that was tricky. I've been trying to report stories from Europe and send them to you. And
oh, that definitely, it helped, definitely.
Well, that's good.
To, sit down on the show and be like, oh, I already have most of the stories already written.
You know, it's funny, I thought I would have like tons of time. You just picture like, oh, I'll be sitting by a river typing away.
I knew you wouldn't. Yeah, I know.
And you know, what's funny is that a lot of that is driven by Wi-Fi.
I know.
You can't do anything without Wi-Fi, and so
true.
You're kind of stuck. If you find Wi-Fi, you're stuck there.
Right, we take that for granted so often.
Yeah.
You know what's really nice? We've been walking down this street and there have been no cars driving, just bikes.
Yeah, so Oxford, a few years ago, we found out, kind of limited the number of cars into the city. You have to have a special permit. You either have to be a delivery truck, or you have to be a taxi with a special permit to drive into the center of the city. And that's dramatically lowered the number of cars and making it much more walkable, bikeable city.
Yeah, and I mean, the street that we're on right now, there's a barrier at the end of the street which would prevent all cars from entering.
Yeah.
So it's nice. We have this nice quiet street.
Yep.
It's great for vlogging.
Yep. It's a good vlogging city.
But it really shows the difference because a little bit further back you might see a car. That section there were cars driving, and pretty irregularly, I would say. It wasn't
just a delivery van.
Right. In the US, you kind of have this like constant stream of cars. There's just always cars, and so you always have this like background level of cars that you're constantly hearing. But here with the bikes and everything, you have these periods of like silence.
Yeah, like I can hear the birds chirping right now.
Right. And it's so different and then every now and then a car will drive by and they're really loud.
Yeah. And really smelly.
Right, especially because most of them are diesels, and they're just oddly loud. Like we saw a diesel, what was it, a Mini Cooper, and it was really loud.
Yeah, so like now we're on a street that's for cars.
Right.
And I bet you're hearing the difference.
Right.
It's about, I'd say, a little after rush hour morning traffic on a, what is it today, Wednesday?
There's only one diesel in that lot. And yet petrol cars are so much quieter than the diesels.
Well, they all bought into this lie that diesel was going to be cheaper and cleaner.
Right.
And it really was a lie.
Right.
And there's so many people who are upset about that now.
Right.
But it's really lowered the value of their cars. And what I thought was interesting is what we've been hearing recently from Elon at Tesla is that the value of Teslas might actually appreciate. I mean, who's ever heard of a car that appreciates in value unless it's some kind of
antique or exotic? Even if it's an exotic, I don't think it appreciates much in value.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is pretty funny. Matchbox cars. They appreciate in value as long as you don't play with them, I believe. And
they have no engine.
True. Nothing to wear out. That's a good point, yeah. Well, I mean, there is plenty to wear out if you play with them. Okay, so we're walking around and we actually found a Leaf. Wow. Pretty brave Leaf, actually. I was,
what do you mean it's brave?
I was looking at PlugShare, and there is one charging station in all of Oxford, and it is not open to the public.
Wow. I mean, Oxford is a very university town. There's like 20 universities here.
Exactly.
So I mean, smart people are here.
Yes.
And they obviously like, biking and stuff like that. So you think this would be the perfect place to have a Leaf or an electric car.
Right.
And yeah, there's no charging infrastructure.
Right.
When I was in Amsterdam, you couldn't throw a rock without hitting a charger, and I'm not even being facetious.
Really?
Every block, every corner of a block would have a charging station.
And how would you, there just must be cables everywhere, right?
No, that's the funny thing. The charging stations in Europe are just posts. They're about 3-4 feet high. Yeah. And you bring your own cable with you in the car. So that's your responsibility as a driver to have Mind Keys level 2 AC cable with you. So you pull that out of your car. You could either be an 8-foot long one, a 24-foot long one, whatever you prefer.
Yeah.
And then you plug it in. And when you're done, the charging post just looks like a little post.
I mean, there's plenty of posts everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, look at all these posts.
There's posts right there, right? And so what you're saying is that could be a charging station.
Yeah, it doesn't clutter things up. We're all used to seeing, waste bins and lamp posts and stuff like that.
And that is so different from in the US, because in the US every charging station has cables, and the cable management is like half of the, I'm trying to get a charging station put in at work, and the cable management is actually a problem. Like it's actually a thing where it's like, what are we gonna do with the cables? And it's like, and luckily, when we were talking about Tesla chargers, the Tesla charger kind of has its own cable management, but still the cables really give it away. Right. And so for anyone who is like, looking to vandalize something for whatever reason, having charging cables just hanging around, easy to just like, I can yank on that.
Yeah.
So having just a basically a post in the ground or just a box in the wall is so much better than, now I mean obviously you can have your cable stolen, your cable, as opposed to it's somebody else's problem.
It's just shocking to me, because over in the Netherlands, which really from where we are now isn't that far, you go into a town like Amsterdam, which is a population of about 800,000, so not a very big city, and it's got over 1,000 chargers in just the heart of the city. And then you come here to Oxford, which is a similarly sized little city. I mean, it's smaller, but like you said, we looked it up, and there's two. One.
There's one, and you can't charge there.
You can't charge there.
So I mean, yeah, and charging infrastructure is so important when you're actually like talking to someone about, wanting to get an electric car. If there's no chargers anywhere near you, there's no way you can convince anyone to get. It's like if I was like, oh, you can get a gasoline car, and there's no infrastructure for that, you wouldn't get it. And it's sort of this catch-22, because people really aren't going to feel comfortable getting an EV until there are chargers, and a lot of places won't, put in a charger unless they think that there's adequate demand for it. And so yeah, you run into this catch-22 where, no chargers get put in, no one buys electric cars. I mean, the one advantage though that electric cars do have are that you can charge them at your house using whatever power you have available there. So that's the one thing that can actually, push through and make something like that happen. And that's what happened before, like with the Leaf. A lot of people bought Leafs, and the battery is so small you can charge them up overnight using a 110 outlet, at least in the United States. That works.
No, you bring up a really good point. When I talked to Larissa Van Ven over at ChargePoint, she said one of the biggest things they're trying to do is educate people from gas cars, where you think a certain way. There's only one way to think in a gas car, right? Which is
once in a while, I need to fill up.
You get down to a point in the gas tank that you feel comfortable with, maybe a quarter of a tank or eighth of a tank, then you go fill up to 100%. You just keep repeating that cycle. And you have to keep going to a gas station. And what she was saying is, with charging stations, you should just plug in whenever it's opportune to do that, and just trickle charge basically your car while you're at work or while you're sleeping.
And that's how it works for most people, for most commutes. You get home, and that is your charging station most of the time, and you just plug in, and then you're ready to go every day. You don't have to stop at the gas station. You never have to be like, oh, I'm gonna be late today because I need to get gas, otherwise I can't get to work. That doesn't happen unless you forget to plug in your car and you drive a Leaf like I did. But if you have a car with adequate range, and you have an adequate charging infrastructure, then yeah, you're all set. I just think it's really interesting.
Jesse and I will be continuing our discussion on the next and final episode of the Euro Model 3 road trip. I hope you join us. Thank you so much for watching. Now you know.